Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Women's Council Collin County Live Podcast. I'm Shannon Viscar, the Membership Director, and it's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ms. Carrie. She's our Programs Director. And then, what do you think of our new introduction?
I like it. I really like it. It's good.
Lyndon is very sharp, so we're excited with our new look. But we are very excited today to be introducing you to a guest. I had the pleasure of meeting Cheryl through CCAR. So I'm on the community outreach. That's the beauty of Women's Council. I started with Women's Council back in 2019 as an affiliate, and I was definitely tapped on the shoulder. So it kind of goes to Women's Council is just a network of realtors advancing women in leadership and in our communities to serve. So along the way in your Women's Council journey, you'll get tapped on the shoulder to step up and to be a leadership. And at the time, Christy Black, our previous president and president-elect, has says, do you want to work with me on community outreach? I'm like, sure. So we got involved and started working together. And unfortunately, we lost Christy in February. She had some health issues, and heart disease was one of her primary problems. So Cheryl and I got together and we started talking after that. And this is where we became. And so this is what I don't think I can do her story justice. And so that's why we invited Ms. Cheryl Norton to be our guest today. So welcome to the podcast. So I'll finish. So Cheryl sits on the foundation, which is North Texas Realtors in Action. So, and we were brainstorming some things that we wanted to do this year. We wanted to do something that involved the community and gave them something that they wouldn't be getting. And so this is how, with Cheryl's connections and her past and she got Living with Zachary to do free heart screenings. So, Ms. Cheryl, I'm going to let you, why don't you start by introducing it, and then you can explain your story because you do it much better than I can.
I am Cheryl Norton. I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker Apex, and I am on the, as Shannon said, I'm on the Community Outreach Committee, and I'm on the North Texas Realtors in Action Foundation. When I joined the foundation this year, I was asked, what's my why? Well, my why for doing this is helping others. And they asked if I had something that I like to donate to, or something that a cause that I like to champion. For me, teenage heart screenings is that cause. The portrait behind me is my daughter, Caitlin, and Caitlin was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy at the age of 14. Prior to that, we had been told that she and her brother, her younger brother, had activity-induced asthma. We found that that was not the case. When she was 14, she had bronchitis. I took her to the emergency room and they said, have you ever seen a chest x-ray? And I said, yeah, I used to be an EMT. I've seen plenty of them. So she said, the doctor said, you need to look at this. And her heart was rather enlarged. That was just the angle of the way the x-ray had been taken. But she suggested that we get a cardiologist to look at Caitlin. So it took about 2 months before we were able to get into a pediatric cardiologist, because we lived out in the country and they only came around once a month, and I missed that month. She didn't get the diagnosis of bronchitis until after that visit. So we ended up going to the cardiologist, and they did a echocardiogram. What that is a ultrasound of the heart. You know, just like for women when you're pregnant and you have an ultrasound of the baby, it's basically the same thing, only what they're looking at is just the heart muscle and how it's functioning. they found that Caitlin's heart was very thick. So what cardiomyopathy is the thickening of the walls of the heart. Caitlin had to stop all activity at that moment. She used to be able to dance, and she was on softball and basketball, and she would sing, she was in choir, she did all kinds of things. But at that point, she had to stop everything. She had been in 4 years in and out of the hospital, numerous tests. They put a implanted ICD, which is a cardio defibrillator, to in case her heart got out of sync, and it would shock her heart back into a normal rhythm.
Wow.
She had gotten listed for heart transplant, and she received her heart at the age of 16, about 3 months before her 17th birthday.
Wow.
And she went for an entire year with no rejection. It was really wonderful. She got to go back to being on the drill team and dancing and singing and doing all the things she loved to do. And then as a senior in high school, this is like the greatest time, for a teenager. And she had her first bout of rejection a year after transplant. And then 6 months later, she had her second bout of rejection. And unfortunately, we lost her at that time, and she was 18 years old. That's my why. I never want a parent to ever go through what we went through. So for me, it was a few years after she passed. We were living down in Austin, and I found Championship Hearts Foundation. And CHAMPS is an amazing group that was started by Dr. George Rogers, who's a pediatric cardiologist. And Dr. Rogers believed that there was a connection with and a way to screen kids for undiagnosed heart conditions. And they came up with this program, and they do it for free. It is totally on donations. Having done it for years down there, when we moved here to North Texas 2 years ago, we found, living for Zachary, and we found that there was a need for this. There's a need for it everywhere.
Yeah.
And we found that by volunteering with this program, we can screen kids, and we can head something off at the pass. If my kids had been screened at 12, we may have been able to change lives. We may have been able to change Caitlin's life. And for me, that is my everything. I want that for everybody.
What did you share about your son when you were going through your battles with Caitlin?
I'm sorry?
I said, would you share, because wasn't your son diagnosed when?
Yes. When Caitlin got diagnosed at 14, her younger brother was 12. And with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, there are a number of ways that it can present. Theirs is genetic, and it came from their father's line, and it is their biological dad, who had passed away also. He was the common denominator, and he was the one that had the cardiomyopathy. My son was 12, and he too had been active in baseball and basketball and everything else, and he too had to stop everything. He is now 30 years old, and And we are very blessed that we still have him. And he has not had to have the things that Caitlin had. Hers progressed very quickly through puberty. His did not. They also have a half brother who has hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and he has a daughter who is now 18 years old, and she does not have the disease. So we're really blessed in that.
Was she able to get screened ahead of time to find out?
Yes, because we found out about Caitlin's.
Oh,
wow. Their half brother Jimmy had gotten diagnosed, and for years and years he had been complaining about chest pain and with activity and tightness in his throat, and he had started smoking at probably 16 or 17 years old. And they said, "Oh, it's because you smoke." Well, no, he had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and any activity would cause his heart to work harder. So once Caitlin got diagnosed, the other two boys got diagnosed, and that really that was a life changer for Jimmy, because Jimmy was able to get an ICD just like Caitlin, and he now is living way past what his dad did. So we're very blessed in that.
why don't you share living with Zachary's story?
Living for Zachary was started because Zachary was playing football and collapsed and passed away. And his family decided they wanted to do something. You don't want another parent to go through this. We always say a parent should never outlive a child. True, but it happens. And what we learn is that we have to figure out a way to make this a blessing for somebody else. We have to try to figure out what our purpose is in this. What do we get to do? Yeah. So we take our grief and we turn into something productive. And that's what they did with Living for Zachary. They do fundraisers. You can donate to them at any time during the year. They do all these heart screenings throughout North Texas, and it's all free. They do a 3-part screening, which is echo, EKG, and I forget what the third one is, but they do a 3-part, and the echo and the EKG are the most important things, because cardiomyopathy can sometimes be seen on a ECG, EKG, but most of the time it is not detectable on that. It is detectable with the echo.
That's the one thing I've always watched GMA and Robin Roberts on there. When she had her breast cancer, then she had her second bout. Mm-hmm. She always says, her mom says, you make your mess your message.
Yes.
And you definitely have taken your platform and used it to better. And that was the beauty. That's how Cheryl and I connected, because after Christy, and being such a part of Women's Council, and as she tapped, me on the shoulder to serve with her, that was the beauty, because Christy had some heart surgeries. When she was president back in a couple of years ago, she had to step down because of health issues. So she was just coming back, recovering from her heart surgeries from a few years ago, was getting involved with CCAR, had just got on the board of directors, and she was excited for new things to start happening. And then we lost her. And ironically, it was during the week of the Snowmageddon, and I just sat there and okay, looked at the screen and was just in disbelief. So when I said I'd step up, okay, we might have to get a tissue. I wanted to do something that honored Christy. That's how Cheryl and I connected. So we did our first screening with Living for Zachary a month ago. And we helped 41 families in North Texas have their children screened. As far as we know, there wasn't anything major reported from that. But we just decided that we wanted to honor Christy, but also honor Caitlin and those families, so this way they didn't have to go through that. And that's kind of the beauty is through community outreach. We decided with CCR president this year is Ron Leach. His theme is to be a good neighbor. So when we were looking through the foundation as well as community outreach, what could we do that made a difference? I mean, yes, we did our food drives, but after we lost Christy, it's just like, how could we carry her legacy on and help another family not experience that? So if they could get treated at an early, and then, you know, like you said, I mean, yes, your story with your daughter and how you share it, because that was the beauty that day. We got to hang out for a few hours. So Miss Cheryl's got some great stories, but the passion that she became her daughter's advocate and what she learned. And when the doctor handed you the book and says, here, do your homework.
It was the first time we were in Medical City, Dallas. We were inpatient. She had been admitted because she started passing out. And her pediatric cardiologist at the time said to me, I was having trouble pronouncing the words. I could not get hypertrophic cardiomyopathy out. I mean, it's just, it's a mouthful. And if you don't know medical jargon, you know, it's hard. And he took the time to explain things to me. And he saw that I wanted to learn. I wanted to know what was happening to my child. And he said I remember he was making rounds late one night because he had a late admit. And he said to me, what are you still doing up? And I said, I just want to know, you know, I'm afraid. I want to know what's going on. And he said, okay, follow me. And we went down to his office and he handed me a medical book and said, here you go, start reading. And I went, what? He said, start reading. And if there's anything you don't understand, ask. Okay. So I used to spend my nights watching her sleep and looking up medical books.
So
That is definitely some dedication.
Well, you know.
I would have been the same way. I would have had to have known every answer and looked in every cranny and nook trying to find something.
You do. One of the funnier stories, the first time I volunteered, one of the first times I volunteered for Championship Hearts Foundation down in Austin was my husband was dropping me off at the Heart Hospital of Austin, and he said to me, what are all these people doing here? I said, those are all the parents with the kids. And the line was out the door, across the parking lot, into the parking garage. And he said, do you think they need more help? I said, come in and find out. He came in and he jumped right in and helped. And we screened over 600 kids that day.
Oh, my goodness.
And out of 600 kids, about 10% of them had undiagnosed issues that they needed to follow up with either their pediatrician or a pediatric cardiologist. But the blessing is these things were found.
Right. That's 60 kids.
Yes.
That's 60 kids that you could have saved.
Yes. Yeah. So,
or at least change the trajectory of their journey.
Exactly. Being able to change the outcome, you know, that is the big goal. Because, we hear about kids all the time. They're running track or they're playing football or soccer or something and they collapse.
Yeah.
We don't think about heart disease in pediatrics except for babies born with a heart condition, or we think about it as an old person's disease,
Yeah.
or somebody who lived life a little too hard. Well, no, that's not it. And the statistics really are, I mean, we hear about cancer patients all the time and how cancer is such a big thing. Cancer is a big thing, but cancer is the number 2 killer. The number 1 is heart disease. And 1 out of every 2 people, 1 out of 2 is going to die from heart disease, whether it's founded or unfounded. And I don't want that to be a kid.
Yeah.
Right.
I want that child to live a full life, have every experience in that they can, and enjoy high school, enjoy college if that's where they want to go, enjoy travel, see the world, do things. That's where this should go.
So yeah. That is the cool part. You definitely had taken your grief and made your mess your message to pay it forward and
Thank you.
benefit other children and their families, so this way they don't have to do that. So how old is your son now?
My son is 30.
So I want to ask again, you shared a story with me about his date last year. Would you explain what happened?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Last year he went on it started out as a first date with a girl that he had met online. And they went out for lunch and he said, oh, I forgot my mask in the car. And he turned around and he went back to the car to go get his mask. And she turned around. He was taking a minute. So she walked back to the car and she found him on the ground, unconscious. He came to, she got him to come to, and they went into the restaurant. He wasn't going to break his date. Boys, right? Right? Wasn't going to break his date. They went into the restaurant. They had lunch. She had lunch. He picked out a burger and he said, I think, can we reschedule? And she said, sure, no problem. And she asked him, do you want me to drive you home? He goes, no. He said, he said, sometimes, maybe I just got dizzy or something. And he said, no, I'm fine. So he left, they left, they went their separate ways. After he drove her to her car, he goes back, comes home, walks in the house, makes about halfway through the house to the kitchen. And my husband was in the kitchen. And he looks at him and he goes, hey, Pat, how you doing? And he looked at him and he was gray and he passed out. And he grabbed him just before he hit the ground, gets him in the living room, puts him on the couch, comes in and gets me. And I mean, I'm in the middle of blow drying my hair. We know what women look like when we're blow drying our hair. There's clips everywhere. He said to me, you need to get out here right away. Something's wrong with Pat. And I came out and I knew immediately. I grabbed a blood pressure cuff and a pulse ox, the thing they put on your finger, to check and see how his oxygen saturation was. And I took his blood pressure and I told my husband, call 911. And Pat is conscious enough to say to me, nope, I'm not going. I said, oh, yes, you are. And at this point, I know he's having a heart attack. My husband looked at him and said, sorry, son, mom trumps everybody. He called 911. They got here. Being that Pat is over 18, you have the right to refuse transportation. but she did. However, the EMT said to him, listen, buddy, I know you don't want to go, but please don't put your mom through this. Go. And Pat said to him, I'll think about it. And he said, if you're not better in 30 minutes, you got to get to the hospital. And they left, and I sat there with Pat, and I started to cry, and I said to him, I can't lose you. I've lost your sister. Don't put me through this. Don't do this to me. I said, we can get this fixed. He said, Mom, I have no life, and I have no insurance, no health insurance. I said to him, I don't care if I'm paying $100 a month for the rest of my life. Your life is important. And he said, okay, let's go. He goes, I can't take the pain anymore. Luckily, when we called 911, they had him chew, I think it was like 10 baby aspirin. And that's what we did. That's what saved him at that point. We got him to the emergency room, and they kept him, of course. They admitted him. One of the hardest things a mom has to do, keep in mind this is during COVID, one of the hardest things a mom has to do, I don't care how old your kid is to walk away and leave your child behind in a hospital. When the nurse came out and said they've already moved him upstairs and that I couldn't go upstairs to say goodnight to him, because last year when he had the heart attack, I was able to go upstairs and I was able to be there with him. And no, I'm sorry. That was when he had AFib earlier last year, in March of last year. But when she said to me, you can't go upstairs, I just completely lost it and I said to her, the last time I had to leave a hospital without a child, my daughter was dead. Don't do this to me. Please let me say goodbye to him. She said, I'm sorry, you can't. You can't go upstairs. You can come back in the morning. I said, I'm staying here in the emergency room waiting area. She said, it's COVID. You can't. My husband had to take me out of there screaming, crying. Just a mess. He got me home. Of course, I couldn't sleep. First thing the next morning, my butt's back there. And I said to him, you ever do this to me again? I promise you. He goes, Mom, I promise you, I'll do whatever the doctor tells me to. The thing I mentioned about AFib, sometimes with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a patient will go into atrial fibrillation, which last March, before we got shut down for COVID, Pat was in the hospital for a week. He had pneumonia, strep, AFib, which is where your heart is beating way too fast and it's not on. And he also had a gallbladder infection. So I spent a week in the hospital with him. The nurse came in. She said, how old are you? He said, 30. Don't even ask. I'm Italian. She's not going to leave. She's just not going to leave. So, yeah, nurses know that, where there's a mom, don't argue with her. If she's going to stay, she's going to stay.
But see, that's the beauty.
I can't even imagine the roller coaster.
No.
On.
Well, not only that, not only with him, on top of all of this, I was also diagnosed with breast cancer last year. So at the end of last year, after we got Pat all fixed and on the right medications to help his heart, at the end of last year, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And in January, I had 2 surgeries and then had pulmonary embolisms this February due to those surgeries. So I was in and out. And at that point, he said to me, excuse me, you're not allowed to leave either. I said, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I got too much traveling to do.
That was the beauty. So the ironic thing that while we're sitting there as we're watching, and that day for living with Zachary, and as the families would come in, we're all sitting around a table and we're talking various things and stuff. But come to find out, Cheryl was sharing her families of growing up, and she has some great pictures. And grew up in New Jersey, right?
Yep.
And so she was talking about that. And so then we started talking food. And I'm from the South. And she's like, oh, yeah, we make gravy. And again, I'm from the South. So Southern gravy is something completely different. So Cheryl and Misty proceeded to explain what gravy was. And they started talking Italian food. So explain your gravy, Madame.
Gravy is typically something made with meat in it or some type of, so like in the South, gravy is, think sausage gravy, right? Or bacon drippings, and that's how we make biscuits and gravy. Yes, I'm Italian. Yes, I'm from New Jersey, born a Jersey girl, gonna die a Texas lady. That's my goal. I'm sorry?
Just not today.
No, no. I got at least 40 or 50 more years. My gravy, what a lot of people call Sunday sauce or something, or marinara. Marinara does not have meat in it. So my Sunday gravy, as a matter of fact, I call it Sunday gravy because that's typically when we start it, or when we have it. It's made with sausage and meatballs and short ribs, sometimes neck bones, beef neck bones. And it is something that is started in the morning and low and slow all day until you go to pick up that short rib and it just goes plop right off the bone.
Man, when's dinner?
You're right. Oh, honey.
I'm coming over on Sunday night.
I'm happy to cook. I need people that want to eat.
Yeah, this is the thing. So we told Cheryl, I'm like, we're gonna pick a day and we're gonna come. And so then she and Misty, because Misty's husband is from the New York area as well. So they start proceeding. Again, this was all a conversation about food. We're going for, heart screenings. We talk about family and stuff. And then we started a food journey. I'm like, and then they started comparing places to eat and different stories. And then Cheryl had some great pictures with her family and some stories with her family. But yeah, that was the beauty of it. We came together for one cause, but then we started talking about family. And that was the beauty of it, just in sharing stories. But then she was sharing, to me at times, it's like she could have been her own version of Sopranos. So share the story about when your cousins took you home when you were had a little too much to drink.
Oh my gosh. It was the night before Christmas Eve. I was 19 years old, I think, 18, 19 years old. Drinking age back then was 18. I had been out with three of my cousins, and two of my uncles, and we were, it's the night before Christmas Eve, and we're just, we're having a good time. I had way too much to drink. Didn't feel it till I stood up, and I, at that time, didn't even own a pair of tennis shoes. Everything was 5-inch heels, spike heels. Yeah. So as we walked out of the bar, I had my cousins in front of me, and one of my uncles was behind me. He knew. I had already handed over my keys. That's the rule in our family.
Yeah.
If you order your second drink, you have to hand over your keys.
Very good rule.
Well, yeah. After being an EMT, we know. And well, any one of us you call, we'll come out and get you. We don't care. We're way before Uber and Lyft. We're family. So we stepped outside and of course the cold air hit me. This is New Jersey, so it was probably 30 degrees out. Cold air hit me and I went, whoa, and I passed out right into my uncle's arms. He gets me in the car and realizes my car is on E. I had no gas. So he drives me to the gas station, fills my car, drives me home. My other cousin is following him. They get me to the door, and he said, where's the house key? I think it's that one. He opens the door, and they push me in. I land on my hands and knees on the kitchen floor, and they yell, "Uncle Johnny, Cheryl's home," and slammed the door, and they ran.
Oh, no.
They ran. Chickens. My mom is standing there with her hands on her hips, like the typical Italian mama, hands on her hips, and she looks at me and she goes, "Get up." I looked up at her and I said, "I can't." She said, "Then crawl to your bed." I said, "Yes, ma'am." I crawled to my bed. The next morning, I heard my mom, she had started her gravy. And when my mom used to sing opera. So when my mom was cooking, she would sing opera to her food. That was her love language. She sang to them. And I hear her singing as she's cooking. And she said, I figured, okay, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to call her from my bedroom phone to the kitchen phone. And I'm going to sing "Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer." I call. Mom doesn't answer the phone. My father does, but I don't wait and listen for who answers the phone. I just start singing "Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer." My father started screaming and yelling. And then I hear my mother, "You just be quiet. I've seen you in that position plenty of times. Now hang up the phone and leave her be. She needs to sleep a few more hours."
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't you have to go to church later that night too?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Midnight Mass. I was raised Catholic, so, midnight Mass. And my mother was not a backseat Catholic. She had to be first row all the time. So Mom, of course, here's Mom. Here's me on one side of her. My brother and everybody else, we're all in a row in that first row. My sister walks in late. My sister is smart. She comes and she sits next to me. She leans over and she goes, "Is Mom mad?" I looked at her. I said, "Are you late?" She said, "Uh-huh." And the priest looks at us and goes, So Mom, of course, is now even more mad. As we walk out, priest is saying goodbye to us. And, he's greeting everybody as we leave and wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. And he looks at my mother and he said, "Rachel, you have beautiful daughters. Leave them alone." My mother, all the way back up the street, because we only lived 5 houses down from the church, all the way back up the street, is going, "You wait till I get you in that house. You wait. You just wait." We got in the house and ran in and hid behind our dad. I said, priest said something to Mom. He goes, "Well, I'm sorry, but yeah, no, I'm not going against Mom."
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'll go against the priest before I go against Mom.
Exactly. Mom was 5'2", 245 pounds. God love her. She was the Italian mom. She was the Italian mama.
Was she from Italy or was she still from New Jersey?
No, she was born in New Jersey. I am second generation American. My parents were first. My grandparents were all from a number of different places in Italy. So from Naples and Calabria and Sicily and Abruzzo. So.
My son is in the Navy and he was over there for 3 years. He lived in Naples and I went over there 1 year and man, it is so pretty over there.
It is. It's gorgeous. I can't wait. I want to go. I want to see it all. I want to start in Sicily and I just want to eat my way from the booth.
It is a lot of eating. We do a lot of eating. Yeah.
And it's so different from what we think of as Italian food here.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. It's not even, pizza barely even resembled what we have pizza here.
Yeah. We, Friday night was either clams and macaroni now when I say macaroni, that means any type of pasta. So it was either clams and macaroni or Friday night was pizza night. And my mom would make homemade pizza. my husband gets on me all the time. He wants me to make homemade pizza every Friday night. And I'm like, I'm tired. Go away. I'm getting too old for this.
How long have you been in real estate?
I've been in real estate for 3 years. I used to work for a board office way back in the 1980s. So I remember when we had a book and you had to go get the key from an agent and then go to the house and then bring the key back and the pictures and everything. Actually, after my dad had passed and my mom sold the house, the agent that sold my mom's house gave me the photo from when the house was first built and they bought it.
Oh, wow.
And the house when my mom sold it. So I have those two pictures.
Oh, that's a great thing to have.
That was one of the best presents. Because she knew I grew up in that house. That was my life.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. So that was the beauty. We got to learn about her family, and her pictures were great. Her stories were great. So
they are good stories for sure.
My mom is 1 of 7. She had 5 brothers. Do I have stories?
Oh,
that's the beauty. We said we're either going to pick a Saturday and eat our way through all these places that her and Misty were talking about, or we're going to invite ourselves up and Cheryl's going to cook for us in the big pot.
There you go. I'm game for that.
I got the alcohol covered, so we'll just come up. We're comfortable, stretchy pants. So this way, as we eat our way through.
I think all of my pants are comfortable, stretchy pants after COVID.
No, if you ever look at little old Italian women, what do they wear? A house dress.
Yeah.
A dress, something that's loose, and they don't care. And they have their apron on. Yes, I have aprons, lots of them. But that's what they do. Because with the dress on, you have that extra room. You can pull out the dress. Nobody's going to see how much you weigh.
Right?
Yeah, that was a beauty. My grandmother, she always sewed it. I always remember, but she had this white, it was kind of like a yellow knit, but she always wore it. And she always had her house dress or she'd wear her other house dress. And it's funny because, again, she was 1 of 10. So her sisters, they all had different house dresses. So it was funny because one of our other women's council, she is our first bride president this year. So it's funny. So she was talking, I can't even remember the post, but anyway, she's like talking about women and, the modern day girl trying to be sexy or whatever. And it's like, okay. And so she has this picture of the house dress and she says, okay, now you might not think this is, quite, the attraction that you're trying to do for your husband. She says, but remember, these women didn't have a problem because they had, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. So that was the funny part because it's like I remember my grandmother having the house dresses, and my sister was going through her stuff, and so she sent a picture, and my grandmother, we always had the house phone in the hallway, and so there's one picture of her, and she's sitting there smiling, and she's carrying on her, but she's got a house dress on, and then another picture is that her sister, and again, with my grandmother never having her ears pierced, she always wore pins. So that was the beauty of just trying to go back and see those pictures because that was the thing. Southern Living, what was it last year when I was listening? So last year when, all the craziness happened, I, set up my office at Amerispac and I just invited myself I went to Women's Council, Florida, Miami, Tampa, Ohio, to California. And it was funny. And I'd listened to these podcasts and I started listening to Lyndon's podcast. And that's Lyndon and I met through Real Producers. And so I just started listening about his podcast and it was great. And it was just interesting, the tidbits of information. And they were introducing one day on a podcast with Real Producers, one of the coaches. And basically he was explaining his story. And the gist of it was, I think the line was, the crap is the caviar. Because, we all have good times and we all have crazy. He says, but, when you go through your valleys of life. And so that was always stuck with me. But that was the beauty of Women's Council has allowed me. And I joke with people, I got the backwards education. I was been an affiliate for 3 years, and that way, and I thought I've been membership director for a year and a half, and so when they tapped me on the shoulder, and I'd first gone to our first power event 2 years ago in Fort Worth, and I thought, wow. And then they says, "Oh, do you want to serve?" I'm like, "Sure." And at the time, I didn't know. I'm like, "Sure, I'll do it." I left hospitality, so I was looking for something more. And that's the beauty with Women's Council, especially last year, was able to learn from everyone and to listen to the podcast, to see what others were doing, and just to see the sisterhood that they did and we supported. And that's the beauty of Women's Council. For, our dues are $189. But for less, than dollars a day, you definitely get the support of the sisterhood. And one of the things about Women's Council is the referrals. And that's one of the key things. But the beauty is you, along your path, you learn leadership skills. And that's the cool part, because I don't think I would have met Cheryl had I not been on my Women's Council journey. And Christy, it says, "Hey, do you want to be my vice chair?" And again, as I shared, after she passed, I'm like, what can we do to honor her memory? So that's how Cheryl and I got to become friends. And that's why I wanted her on the show, because she can explain her personal experience. So our next screening that we are doing with community outreach at CCR and Living for Zachary is going to be Saturday the 2nd at CCAR in Plano. So you can go to ccar.net, and we'll be sharing in the next couple of days information. So we will be doing a screening with them. And our goal is to screen at least another 40 students. So this way, and then make it something that we do at least once or twice a year, because we want to honor Caitlin, we want to honor Christy, and help all of the families that we can, do our part to pay it forward. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to honor Christy as being part of Women's Council. And that's after she passed, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get my real estate license. So that's the beauty. So I joke with people, it's like I've got the backwards education, but that's the beauty, is I've met great people, and it's great to hear everybody's stories and to see, because I got to meet Carrie. Carrie joined us in March at one of our events. So once Carrie was on board a little bit, we're like, "Oh, you got some events history. Oh, you want to be part of the team? Oh, we need an events director." So that's the beauty.
Here I am.
Be careful what you say yes to.
I know. It's definitely been more than I expected, but it's been great. Like Shannon said, you meet so many great people.
You do.
And I've learned so much about events coordination and Women's Council and just myself in general. It's been really good.
So
one thing I did want to ask before we finish, I wanted to ask Cheryl one last question. What happened to the girl at the restaurant on blind date?
Well, let me tell you, they have been dating for over a year.
Yay!
August 1st. And I can honestly say she is just the sweetest thing. I just love her to death. She's a little fiery redhead, and she's just an absolute doll. She fits in with this crazy family just perfectly. So who knows? You never know what God's going to do,
I don't know. She was there for a reason.
Yeah. And she said, I didn't know that he had a heart condition or anything. She said, I had no idea, or I would have taken his phone and tried to call somebody or something. She said, but he's like, oh no, this happens all the time. I said, no, it doesn't. She said, it doesn't? I said, no. I said, he hasn't had a heart attack since he was about 15. I said, so this is the first time he's had one in probably 15 years. And she looked at me and she goes, where'd he go? I said, to the store. She said, wait till he gets back. But yeah, she's great. She's great. We love her.
Good. Well, I guess people don't usually put heart disease in their profile, their online profile.
Well, I got to tell you, on his profile, he said, and this is their funny story, that he said, for the right girl, you could take up both bathroom sink counters. And she took him at his word because she can take up both bathroom sink counters.
You said.
That's what she tells him. She said, well, you said.
That's awesome. That's a good story. They have a good story.
Yep, we have a good life. It's got its ups and downs. It's a roller coaster, but the bottom line is, life is to be enjoyed. Like I said, I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. I've lost a child. I've lost a babies during pregnancy. Patrick was actually a twin, and I miscarried the twin, but luckily I have him. There's just so many things to be grateful for every day.
Yeah.
I love what I do with real estate. It's always been a passion of mine. So finally getting to get my license, and I'm licensed in 2 states. I'm licensed in North Carolina and here. So for me, this is not only do I get to do real estate, but I get to volunteer and do things for other people, and I still get to do heart screenings at the same time. So I get all the goodies.
Yeah, you do. Well, I'm so glad we got to talk to you today.
Well, thank you. And I can't thank you all enough for having me. This has been wonderful.
That is why I wanted you on here, so you could properly, because I did not do it justice last time. And
great.
So this was part I wanted everybody to see Cheryl's passion, and definitely how she's definitely made her message, and how we bonded, and honoring Christy's memory as and then that way honoring her daughter. And we wanted to pay it forward to other families and be a good neighbor in the community. So again, go to ccar.net. Our next screening with Living for Zachary is going to be Saturday, October 2nd, and details will be coming. But it is my pleasure and blessing to share Ms. Cheryl, and that way with our audience. And we are very blessed, and we look forward to continue. And Ms. Carrie, you can come out and hang with us, because next time I think we're going to have on that Saturday, I think we're just all going to volunteer instead of ordering something. We're just going to, bring something. And we got a few. We're going to be hanging out from 8 to 3.
I got it. So all you got to do on Friday, get with me. We'll sit down and we'll decide: are we going to do an antipasto?
Yeah.
Or do we want?
She froze. But all right, well, that's the end. So, but thank you guys so much for being part of here. And then that way we'll definitely be posting more information on the recap for our page. But again, please like and follow WCR Collin County. You'll see our latest events that we have working, and that way just be kept abreast of everything. So thank you for being part and listening, and we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Next week. Bye.